called? An interlude while all the tech starts working?
So we should have a theme song playing. We're dads being dads. We're dads being dads.
Not sure if that's the one that we'll use.
Hey man, I wrote it on the spot. Come on, give me some cred.
Oh no! Now I'm hearing an echo. Oh no!
Oh yeah, I hear that.
Okay. Good. I think. Okay, let's see. We're live on LinkedIn.
Okay. Hi, people.
That's working. Okay, but I got to turn off the audio because now I hear like all the streams in my ears.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So it's playing in your
really
head.
Trippy. Yeah, really trippy. Okay, Facebook's live, LinkedIn's live. Sorry for anyone who has to listen to this part. Twitter is supposed to be live. Can you see it, Alain? Okay, good. You know what? It'd be great if the software actually told us that all of them were working.
Well, you can put it in their suggestion box.
I'm sure it'll get to the people that make the
make the big decisions.
If they're listening, yes, we would love to know that our live streams are working. We'd like to know that someone's actually in the lobby waiting to come into the show. We'd love the ability to have our new producer, Alain. Thank you, Alain, for being here, which is incredible. Our close friend, Alain. It would be great if he could come on the show because right now I can't turn on the producer's camera.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I'm not sure that's what people really care to hear right now. So yeah, good morning. How's it going, Thomas?
It's going good. I'm a Canuck fan, and so last night's comeback victory was amazing. And what was really joyful is I missed most of the game. I was at band practice, so not band camp. I wasn't at band camp. I was at band practice, and I don't know if you got the joke there, but
I got it. Yeah.
Okay. So anyhow, I arrived home just in time for the comeback. And so my wife and my two daughters were engaged in the game, which is, like how blessed am I that I have a family that loves hockey and loves watching hockey with me. And so we were cheering goals and jumping up and down and high-fiving each other, or high-tenning each other, I guess, because it was full-on patty cakes in the air. So it was great. So I'm good. That still feels fresh this morning.
Yeah, big comeback, right? They were down 4-2.
4-1, actually.
4-1.
4-1, and came back to win it 5-4. Apparently, I was listening to a talk show. Not that this has anything to do with our dad's thing, but if you'd have bet the Canucks at 4-1 to win in regulation time, 3,000 to 1.
You could have bet $1 and made 3,000.
Apparently, that was the odds, 3,000 to 1 when they were down 4-1 to win in regulation. So even $10 would have been a pretty decent payoff. Yeah,
I would have taken that.
Yeah, well, I didn't. I don't bet, so I wouldn't even have seen it till. So,
wow. Yes, that was pretty. I was at a restaurant doing some work. Had my noise canceling headphones on, and I could see it and hear the screaming. I was sending you that stuff on water quality, so
right.
I was deep into that. Yeah.
All right.
So today we thought, we got Ryan, we got Thomas, we got Alain. Episode
How are you?
I'm great. This is episode number 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, three and a fake one. 3 and a mystery one.
Oh, right.
Mystery there's 3 and a mystery episode that went out and then it got deleted, and maybe it's somewhere out there in the ethers.
I don't think anyone. Well, so far we haven't had that many people point out that there was a week missing. Yeah. As Alain pointed out, he doubled our followers this morning on YouTube. So
that's right. Thank you.
But I said that doubling every week would be great, right? The compounding math.
Yeah, the 1 cent, right? The 1 penny.
Yeah, double that every week.
Yeah.
I'm happy about that. But yeah, I'm really well. We thought today's show we could talk about education and empowerment as it pertains to our children and us. Well, it's not just them, of course.
Yeah. Well, I took it as both when you sent me that education, empowerment, and I think I have probably more to say on empowerment education, but we'll see. Is there any first thoughts you want to jump into? Anything that sparks you? Or
I just the first spark, well, education too. Like you guys started, well, you didn't start, but you, with your twins, they started in the public school system and then you homeschooled them. So I think there's an interesting piece just around education. And I do think there's quite a connection between, in my own opinion, education. Like I think education leads to empowerment in many cases. Yeah.
yeah,
Right
I
kind
mean,
of
just
education.
think of yourself. Like I know for me, when I think back to my school days, and I was not a very focused or successful student when I went to school. But I do know that when I got something, like when I got the concept, when I understood what was going on and I was actually learning, I was way more interested in the class than when I didn't get it or I wasn't, it just wasn't resonating with me. Then the interest just went way off the chart into nowhere land.
And do you think that interest is well, yeah, do you think it's the topic? Do you think it's the teacher?
I think it's maybe both, because I had a grade 10 English teacher where we were studying Shakespeare, and we would she encouraged us reading it in class as the characters. And I loved that. I love reading out loud, right? So for me, that and hearing other people read, for me, that worked great. Like I totally loved that class. I'm sure there were some that didn't want to read out loud, that hated it. But for me, that was the most fun I ever had in an English class, and probably the most engaged I ever was in an English class because of the involvement of everybody doing Shakespeare together. Not that I ever wanted to be an actor, but I just loved the idea of that, and it engaged me in what we were actually doing. And as a result, I received great marks in that class because I was getting it.
Right. And that's
So,
stemming from the teacher.
stemming from the teacher, and I would say my learning style
Right. Matched her teaching
matched
style.
her teaching style, that I was able to fit into that, whereas, like I said, other students maybe didn't. They didn't feel the same way. They might have hated that.
Right. And how many kids probably, well, including ourselves, wrote off a subject as, oh, I don't like that. Like I can think of my chemistry class in high school. Pretty sure it was grade 11 chemistry. Didn't totally see eye to eye with the teacher. How many times did we write off a subject matter because of the teacher?
Yeah, I would say I've seen that with my own kids. Not want to take a class because of the style of teaching it was going to be, what they had heard, or they previously had that teacher, and they were like, no, I'm not going back in that classroom.
Yeah. And looking back now in my age, I didn't realize this at the time, but that poor teacher, I remember his name, I won't say it here, but he didn't know the subject either. He was thrown into that class as the teacher because they were short staffed. So now you got him not enjoying being in that class, teaching that subject. He's not teaching it in a way that's enjoyable for the class. Now we don't enjoy being there. Now we don't enjoy the subject,
So he was pretty much like a parent.
In which way? You
thrown into the subject and not really knowing what the heck you're doing. That's
true. And I guess so yes, exactly, right. You're just you're having a kid. I mean, you get pregnant, the kid's coming. You don't really, at that point, you can't change the date. It's gonna happen. But you do have a choice in terms of, I guess also looking back, he did have, parents, he teachers, he had a choice in terms of how he would show up. He did choose to show up like, I don't want to be here. I don't enjoy teaching this. I don't,
Right. Probably embarrassed and maybe just nervous about it all, and maybe a lot of self-doubt.
Yeah, it didn't help that my friend and I pointed out all the things that, he didn't know that we decided to let him know that we knew, like just, immature teenage boys. Yeah.
Being brats. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I would fall into that category for sure.
Yeah. He would lock the door. Like if I was ever late, which wasn't that often, but if I was, he would lock the door and, pop quiz.
Right. But I also want to go to so what can we do as parents to support our kids in that environment? And having been in a house where, our kids went to public school, then we homeschooled, then they went back to public school, and now we're kind of back to homeschooling again with one of our kids because of some fabulous opportunities in front of her, right? So in some weird sense, I've kind of been able to be more involved in the education process. Certainly, my wife does way more of the schooling than I do, but I have had to be involved to some degree, and I think one of the things that I'm really kind of seeing now is we're needing to really help them get a grip on self-motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing about going to school is you're given deadlines and dates for things to be done, and you're kind of pushed along by the teacher, having to hand things in certain time frame. Whereas when you're homeschooling, it can be a lot more lenient. Like there can be a lot of downtime, right? And so some of that actually leads into what I've seen as kids learning to be self-motivated, self-starters, having to get, really coming to grips with how bad do I want this and what am I willing to do to put in the work.
So yes, okay, great. There's two things in there. One of them I was hoping we could talk about, and then you also asked what can we do to support our kids in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
So let me start with that one, and then I also want to come back to your second point there around self-motivation, because that's also something I picked up from you with your kids being older, is helping kids become the leaders of their own life is sort of the way I summarize, your approach. But just back quickly to what can we do to support our kids, if they are in the public, well, in any arena, whether it's even at home, if they're being homeschooled or public school system, or I'm even experiencing this in sports with coaching. It's no different than teaching. Having a coach that maybe don't resonate with, or maybe is thrown into a situation that they're not experienced enough in, can really throw off the class or the team, right? And so what I've found, just to answer that question, my thoughts on it, and I'd love to hear yours, to support a child in that environment is what I've found helpful is education, is to educate them on maybe what's going on, to educate them what might be like. That would have helped me. I'm guessing in that classroom back in high school in chemistry class, was if my parents, knew what was going on and educated me in terms of what's going on for the teacher, and then educated me in terms of ways that I could even, handle the situation differently. Like maybe I could have gone to the teacher after class and just said, hey, here's what I think the answer was to that, not pointed out in front of everybody in the classroom. So there, there's definitely ways I think parents could help a child just understand that it's not them, that maybe it's something else that's going on that's causing them to feel a certain way.
Well, what I'm thinking about as I hear you speak this is there's no class for emotional intelligence. There's no class to, there's lots of academics.
Sure.
But there's no class where kids are learning emotional intelligence and how to deal with their feelings and their emotions. And I guess maybe it's hoping that it's going to come from the home front. Right. But if parents aren't really equipped to manage that, like, I don't know that, I certainly didn't know that I would want to know that. It's only through training that I've since taken in my life over the last 5 years where I've had to even be aware of my own emotional intelligence. Right. And understand that. And I'm in my 50s. Like, imagine if I had known that when I was younger. I don't know if my life would be any different. I'm not saying that's the case. I do think I would have handled things a lot differently at times.
Yeah.
I would have been more equipped, as you said, to understand what am I feeling, what's going on over there, how can I turn this into, maybe the teacher's just not mad at me, they just can't handle what's going on, and so they have an outburst about it.
Right? Yeah. I mean, but yeah, our parents didn't get it either. Like, they didn't get that class, so then they don't necessarily. My parents did the best they could, but they weren't necessarily equipped with all these tools, and then so they couldn't give it to me, and then I didn't get it anywhere. So then without becoming aware of it and teaching myself, then how am I ever supposed to give it to my kids?
Mm-hmm.
Or where are they going to get it from?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully they learn it from the fam, from the in-house.
Yes, because of this amazing teaching school that we all go to.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's one of the well-rounded classes. I realized we just lost our producer.
He did have to drop, so he
Okay.
let me know that ahead of time. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wasn't the
Thank
software's
you.
fault this time. Yeah.
Thank you, Alan. That was awesome.
Big
It was
shout out,
awesome to
yes.
have him help us out.
Yeah. The reassurance that things are actually working.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I, well, there's another story. Maybe it's a little fresh to share it with one of my kids. But they were made to believe that showing emotions in class wasn't a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
That they should be able to manage their emotions. And I'm sitting there going, well, I'm 45 and I'm still learning how to manage my emotions. So I don't think that's fair to expect a kid to do that. They're learning, I'm learning, but like, I think they need some space to learn that. I think they need some help to learn. I do.
Yeah. Well, isn't that the learning environment? I mean, that is the perfect time to learn.
Right.
To have the emotional situation come up, and then to have, I think of this often, like when I think about, us having having these conversations about kids and what is my role, and what should I lay expectations on them, like all of these things that come up in the day-to-day planning of how do I deal with being a dad and a parent. And I often refer back, there was this friend of mine a long time ago that kind of summed up, the most like core thing about parenting is like teaching your kids, for example, hey, that's a hot stove. Don't put your face on the element. It's not going to be good, right? Like they need to learn. There's things they absolutely need to learn. And we probably have to teach them those things. And there's things they need to learn that we're not even aware of, that we might want to try to not teach from a place of do it this way or do it that way, but teach from a place of understanding,
right?
Of having them understand that, look, this is what's going on. This is potentially what's going on for you, and you're going to be faced with choices, and you get to choose, and have them begin to understand that process, that there is choices at times. And along with those choices are going to be consequences or circumstances, however you want to phrase it. But whatever you choose, there's now going to be, something that happens or results that don't happen because of the choices you make.
Yeah, right. Well, I think that's going to tie in. There's one quick point I want to make, and then I think that's going to tie in really well with, becoming the leader of your own life. I think what you were saying there around is helping them become aware that there's even a subject here to learn. I think because then, like you say, you don't have to tell them exactly how to feel or what to think, but just being aware that there's a subject here that isn't being taught in the schools, but that there is a great body of learning around. Let's call it emotional intelligence. And even just with that awareness to go, oh, okay, like there's something here for me to learn, then it sets a whole new path versus, oh, this is everything I'm supposed to know, yet I still feel like this. That doesn't. So for me, if you don't know, that feels and you don't feel very good in this situation, and you don't necessarily know what's going on with the teacher or coach, for me, that would feel very, disempowered maybe, or might not. Yeah, you wouldn't feel very good, at least. And then at least if you know that there's something else going on, there's something else at play here, to me, that feels very empowering, that at least there's more to uncover and learn.
Right. So yeah, like this is, so in school, the schooling is very focused on the IQ.
IQ, yeah.
Right. And the emotional is the EQ.
Right.
And then when I was going through seminary, it was SQ, our spiritual intelligence.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Because, do we have that? Does that even exist? I mean, that's something for somebody else to decide. I believe I have a spiritual intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
I have an emotional intelligence, and I have an intelligence of,
Sure.
academic. Yeah. What do I know in the world? What do I actually know of how to do things and how not to do things in the physical world?
Yeah. So even just knowing that there's those three things that you could be educated in and growing in, and I don't know how you measure some of them, but I'm sure there's ways. That just creates a whole new, for me, that would, even just thinking about that now, that creates a whole new realm of empowerment and curiosity. And okay, like, I think anytime, and you shared this from Landmark, right? Anytime you realize that, like, actually what we know is like this much, and the amount that we don't know is, well, we don't know how much we don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's things we know. There's things we know that we don't know. So, for example, I know that I don't know how to fly an airplane.
Mm-hmm.
I know that. So I know you can fly an airplane, and I know that I don't know how to do that. And then there's things I don't know that I don't even know that I don't know them.
Yeah, I didn't know about SQ.
Yeah, like there's things out there that exist that I don't even know that I don't know that they exist. Like they're not even in my purview. They never will be unless all of a sudden I get hit on. Yeah, I didn't know there was a spiritual intelligence till I was in the class, and it's like, oh, what's SQ? Oh, okay.
I didn't even know that was something that was something to know until you just mentioned it. So, a great example, yes, of it's just there's so much outside our realm of what we even think we know or don't know that, yeah. Anyways, it's it can mess with your mind a little bit.
Yes, that's the beauty. I think, when I hear stuff like that, so when things like that happens to me, it just humbles me. It just it's like, oh wow, I don't know much. Actually, I should just make sure that I'm not running around yelling at people, telling them how to live their lives, and thinking I know all this stuff, because there's so much I don't know.
Right? I have that feeling anytime I go in the library and I just look around and look at all the books and go like, oh, I mean, even my library here, like I haven't read half the books on my shelf here. I'm just like, man, there's a lot. And that's not, I mean, that's what, if I don't know, if you were to take the internet and put it in a physical form, like what would, like the library itself is so daunting and humbling. What if you were to take the vast body of knowledge that's currently posted on the internet and put that into some sort of physical form like that? It would just be like,
don't even know.
I know nothing. I mean, really.
Well, that would be books though, right? I mean, there's how many books have been written?
Sure.
There has to be millions, like millions upon millions of books that have been written.
Yeah. Yeah. And all the knowledge that's in people that hasn't been written also, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Humbling.
Yes.
Okay. So on to that other topic that I had put there was that you were starting to talk about was helping kids become the leaders of their own lives, because to me that's also this path of empowerment.
Yeah. Well, do you want me to start, or do you want to start?
Well, why don't you, if you wouldn't mind, because I think this is an interesting parenting, I don't know what you want to call it, philosophy, strategy, belief, whatever, that you and I share. And so, I would love to get your thoughts on that. When did it occur to you that this would be an important thing that you wanted to bring into your home, or your wife wanted to bring in your home? Yeah. Just where did it come from?
Yeah. I think
your thoughts around it.
Well, there's, I am blessed by being the youngest of 6 kids and having many nieces and nephews, and I think I shared with you before that I was child sitting when I was like in grade 7. I was changing diapers and using pins, like cloth diapers, and learning all of these skills from my older brothers and sisters because they had kids. So I've seen and I've lived with older brothers and sisters and watched them raise their kids, and not from a place of judgment, but from a place of seeing things. And then I have my parents' experience of, but one of my oldest, I think it was my oldest brother. I don't know why this stuck in my head, but I remember once he has a couple of kids, and his son always wanted to do things kind of like our friend Tim.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The son always wanting to be involved with dad. Right. And so he would like let him use a chainsaw, and his rule was, if you want to use a tool, I will teach you. So first I will teach you how to use the tool. I will teach you safety around the tool,
mm-hmm.
and then we'll practice, and then you can use the tool.
Mm-hmm.
And if I ever catch you not using the tool safely, you're no longer using the tool. That was sort of his process in terms
direct
of
consequence.
Yeah, like that was his process. So he was never just saying no to this kid.
Sure.
No, you can't do that. It was how can I set this up where, my son can actually learn how to do something. So maybe he's not ready for the chainsaw, but he's ready for a little tiny hacksaw. So
Sure,
you
right?
start with, you give them something to start using, you teach them how to use it, you teach them what it's for, and then you watch them and they learn, and then they watch you and they learn, and then next thing you know, they're using the chainsaw because they have all of this other accumulated knowledge around a tool.
Yeah,
Right.
right. There's something I'll quickly add, if I could,
Yeah.
on that, just because I posted this recently. This framework has helped me, and I don't remember when I picked it up or where, but it's been super helpful, and it's stuck with me for, I don't know, 10 years at least. Is I'll do it and you watch. I'll do it and then you help. You do it and I'll help, and then you do it and I'll watch. It's kind of like this path to help kids become empowered, or even myself, right? If I'm learning something new, is if I go through that framework, and maybe I'll do it a few times, like you're saying, like start small and make sure it's safe. Like I remember when my kids first wanted to walk to school, well, maybe that's, maybe not the best example, because they're not going to just watch me do that. But maybe with the tools is a better one, or cooking on the stove is the better one, right? Like, watch me here. I'm going to cook this egg. Now I'm going to cook it. You're going to help. And so they start to feel more comfortable with it. Now they're going to do it, and I'm going to help. I'm just going to like throw them in deep end, and then they'll do it. And I watch. And if they're being safe, then great. Then we continue the process here. But I wanted to share that.
Yeah, that's a perfect example though. That's how I think you empower your kids, and you build trust and a bond between the two of you at the same time, because you're working together, you're collaborating together on something. And because I know that when life gets hectic, the easiest thing to do is to just keep saying no, because you can do it yourself, and you can do it way quicker. Right. And, I just got home from work, and I got to get this dinner together, and, little Johnny wants to help, or Susie wants to help. And you're just like, no, I don't have time for this right now. And it's just no, no, no.
Right.
And instead of taking that as time to be spent with your child, which it's quality time, and you're actually teaching them some life skills at the same time, and empowering them to be to manage themselves, so that later on, when you're not home from work early and they need to put some dinner together, they actually know how to do it,
right?
Like they can self-manage. Because here's how this is coming up now, is that I realize my daughters have driver's license, they don't even know how to check the oil.
Right.
Like, I have completely failed on the idea of my kid. If that car stops, they don't even, like, in the middle of somewhere or got a flat tire, they have no idea what to do.
Well, don't be too hard on yourself.
No, I'm just on the driving part. I realize, like, wow, in that area, I have done nothing to prepare them for what might happen should the vehicle stop working, or to even check the oil on their car to make sure that it's not, has an oil leak anywhere. Like, none of that stuff is in their understanding. And if they're going to be out driving and managing a vehicle, these are things they should know. And like, I hate to use the word should, but these are things that would be worthy of knowing. How's that? Instead of should, it's worthy of knowing.
Sure. In case they're in that situation where they're totally stuck. We could get sponsored by BCAA. They could, I'm a loyal member. They can just, as long as they have the number to call, then they're going to get the help they need.
Yeah, that's true. Should we have a little dancing BCAA logo that goes across
Interlude
the screen
here? Yeah, just cut to add. Yeah. Anyway, but as an aside, BCAA has been really helpful, because there are things that, I know how to do them, but I'm likely not, if it's not the best use of my time. I'll just call them, and they're great. They'll come, charge the battery and fix the tire.
It's true. I guess that maybe it's not a relevant example anymore, but when I was first driving, way back,
there were cars then? I'm just kidding.
We had the holes for the feet below, so you could.
Oh, like the Flintstones?
Yeah. That's how they were back then.
You still had to change tires then.
Yeah. There were stone tires though. Just awful, super heavy.
Do you think our kids have any idea who the Flintstones are?
I don't know. I have no idea. I think I shared with you that they thought that Steve Jobs had invented the telephone.
Oh, the telephone.
Yeah, before they knew of Alexander Graham Bell,
Okay.
when we asked them when they were little, we asked, well, who do you think made the telephone? And they were like, well, Steve Jobs made the telephone. And then we realized, like, whoa, that of course they would think that because
That's what a telephone is for them. Yeah.
they've never seen. We didn't have a dial phone or a regular phone line since we had the kids. Like we just didn't. And so for their world, all we ever had was a mobile device. And so of course they would think that that's where it came from.
Oh yeah, that'd be good. I have a little chest here of like artifacts, like a fax. What do I have? Like a dial-up modem. I have a flip phone, but I actually haven't gone back far enough. I need a rotary phone. That would be something that I have a lived experience of. That just no one. Well, maybe there's some people obviously that are listening that remember this thing, right? Where you would have to wait for the number to go all the way back.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Just, like how long that took to dial. Well, we didn't have 10 digits, but man, compared to today, that's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. But I just want to step back too, is that sometimes though, guess what? Sometimes I've got to say no.
Sure.
Like I know I said I don't want to always say no, but there's things that it's just no, you're not doing that. No, I am not sanctioning that event, or I am not on board with that happening. And as far as I'm concerned, it's a no.
Yeah.
And that's it. And there might be upset. There might be, now there might be some words as opposed to what used to be the tears or the outbursts. But, now there's maybe a confrontation because they're able to speak and they have good cutting humor. So those things can come into play as well. But I'm just okay with it. It's like, that's fine. You can be upset. It's okay. You're allowed to be upset. That's part of emotional intelligence, right?
Yeah. And do you think, and I can probably think of some, but just maybe to shed some light, like those no's probably come from a lived experience that you have where it's like, look, I have a pretty good understanding of how this could go. Probably it largely deals with safety. I don't know, maybe you have an example that's strong that you can.
Well, there's things like, we've always kind of been, you're going to bed at a certain time because you have school in the morning would be an example. So we stuck, they may not go to sleep. I get that.
Sure.
But they're going to bed. Like they're doing the process of that to try and instill that you need to be, you need to set yourself up the best way you can. And one of the things we do require is sleep. So maybe learn that now, that you can be responsible for how you show up the next day by doing things that allow you to show up in your best possible way, right? And allow them, I'm not like, you go to sleep, but it's like, no, it's time to shut things down and, head off to the room, so to speak. So there's been things like that. I mean, now it's more things like, can I use the car, and what time are you going to be home, and who's going to be in the car? Like there's things that are now more detailed because of safety, because of, I know what can happen out there. I know what I used to do. I know what other kids used to do. So you want to prepare them to be in the best place possible.
Sure. Well, and I guess so what comes up for me too is there's an age where, those boundaries are a little clearer for certain things, like and I think the important thing I hear in that too is getting into that, a good habit, and helping them with that, because, when they're younger, they don't know necessarily what good habits are, right? They don't realize the importance of brushing their teeth, and they don't realize the importance of going to bed at a certain time, right? To them, it's like, oh, why wouldn't I just eat sugar all the time and stay up as late as I want and never brush my teeth, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's an age that
sounds like a great idea. Like, why can't I do that now? Where's my staying up all the time and not caring about anything? Come on.
Yeah, well, we got good habits. It's just is not, but sometimes, right? You can, what does Tony Robbins calls it, like a zig or a zag. Like sometimes it's good to have just let it go. Like don't be, have the ice cream, stay up late. I mean, don't do it every day. One day, it's not going to wreck your whole life. But with the kids, I think there's an age where those boundaries are important to help establish, and good habits are important to establish. Like there's some key things that I when you talk about safety and health, And then it gets to a point as they get older, I think, if you would agree too, is okay, look, I'm going to give you my advice in terms of how I think this should go for yourself for bedtime, just as one example. If you choose to stay up super late and, talk on the phone or go on your screen or whatever, then it's your, this is where there's a transition to you're the lead of your own life here. If you want to do that, that's fine. You'll start to realize the direct consequences of how that turns out, right? If you've got a big day at school tomorrow and you stayed up late, well, guess what? You're going to experience how that goes. You're going to experience getting sick. You're going to experience feeling really lousy. Your health's going to suffer. I mean, I think what I've hopefully realized, and that's my kids are realizing, is that they're starting to get the learning from this themselves, not it coming from me.
Yeah, they might see it, and so there's the guiding, right? There's the idea that you want to plant the seed, and so, for example, an athlete, we both have an athlete in our home. They have competitions.
Yeah,
how are you going to set yourself up for the best possibility? Not necessarily to win,
sure,
but to show up and do your best, to walk away feeling, hey, I was prepared, I gave it my all, and it turned out how it turned out, and that's fine. I can live with that, right? But the regrets might be, man, I shouldn't have stayed up till 4 a.m. because I'm tired and I don't have the energy I really want right now to do this thing. And they both have jobs now. So how do I show up for work fresh and ready to go and be a responsible employee, right? To put my best foot forward. So there's all of those things that begin to, you want to, I like your way of putting it. I'm not going to tell you what to do here. You're going to do, because there comes a point where they're going to do whatever they're going to do. There's you can't be with them.
Yeah.
So how do you manage to encourage certain behaviors and remain friends?
Remain in a relationship where you've got respect, you've got trust, you've got connection, you've got openness, right? Like a friendship, like a really good friendship, right? You would have, right? Because I also, there's a switch at some age where it goes from, in my opinion, asking for approval to asking for advice. I've talked to my eldest about this, where it's like, she's like, oh, can I do this? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, can you? Like, I'll give you my advice, but this is your life, right? This is your school. This is your sports. This is your health. This is your body. You know what I mean? And she, like we talked about before, she might not be aware of all of these subjects that could be at play, which is at least one advantage we have is more time on the planet. We have, in theory, more exposure to some of these things that they just don't know. I still might not know what is best to even offer in this subject matter, but at least I can tell her, this is something that's maybe at play here that you might not know about. Now you could start to be curious about it. But there has been a shift to, look, I'll give you my advice. I'll give you my thoughts. I'll give you, this is what I would do. But ultimately, it's going to be your choice. It's your life.
Right.
So approval versus advice.
Yeah. And I want to go back. Like, it's not so I will not sacrifice what I think is right just to remain friends, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think respect is a good way to put it, but I'm not going to lose my cool to the point where I'm shaming or damaging the relationship, right? I can be a no with love and joy in my heart and just be like, no, I'm sorry, that's just not happening on my watch. That's because I remember my dad was like that. There was things my dad was like, no, you live in this house and there are rules in this house. And if you don't like some of the rules that are here, you have options. You can leave. I'm not encouraging you to, but understand that, there's a lot of runway here. Sure. And then there's some things that are just a no-go.
Yeah.
And they're not going to change because of you. They're just not.
Yeah. 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 I share a similar, I guess, parenting philosophy that with my kids, and I think you're the same, is they get a lot of runway. They get a lot of room to explore, to learn, to figure out themselves, and there's not a lot that I'm going to be like, this has to be the way it is for all these things, right? There's a lot of room for them to explore. And there are some things while they're in the house, they're like, this is a no. Or
Right.
at least as much as I can impart that on them, like, especially like as they start to get older, like, don't get in a car with someone who's been drinking. Like,
Yeah.
that's just, as much as I can say it, that's got to be a no.
Yeah.
But of course I can't be there. So I've got to educate. Well, why is that a problem, Dad? So I'll have to let them know because they don't have experience of drinking. So, well, here's why that's a problem. And that's again back to the education means, to me, can create empowerment. The right kind of education can create empowerment, because now they go, oh, it's not just this, my dad says that has to be this way. It's, if I give them the reason why, now their brain can go to work on, oh yeah, well, is that also the same if they've been smoking up a lot? And I'm like, oh yeah, you're right, because they're impaired, they're not thinking straight. They're so then their brain can go to work on making better choices for themselves. And why am I saying this in the first place? Is because I care about you and and your friends, and I don't, so there are some things, and these conversations happened a lot quicker than I thought they would. I think kids are exploring the world maybe at a faster pace than we did. I don't know, but
well, I'd say social media has opened up channels of learning and seeing and examples that maybe you didn't even think you would ever have to deal with until a certain age, and they're happening, when they're in the crib.
Yeah. It's available to everyone at all times. Anything to everyone at all times, anywhere. I mean, it's crazy, right? So yes, so that was a long-winded point, but I similarly think that there's some key things that are just like, look, you gotta, these are the things you can't undo.
Yeah.
So I want you to know.
And I have to be nose to them as well.